Hello, welcome to Transformation Through Unification. I'm Erin Carranza. I am an advocate and the founder of Transformation Through Reunification. I'm also a court expert witness in dependency court. I have testified in several states for parents during reunification. And I'd like to introduce you to my very good friend and co-host tonight is Mr. Brian Hamilton.
Hello, how are you?
So tonight I had you on because I wanted to talk about what the removal of a child does to a parent's life
Mhm.
and how it isolates them and the worst thing you could do is
Yeah.
um, the worst thing you could do to a parent is this.
Yeah, sure. So just kind of to give some background on who I am, I'm a therapist associate who works at Life Source Affordable Counseling in Riverside, California. I've been working with parents and families who've been struggling with domestic violence and whose children have been placed in foster care for about 3 years now. And to kind of answer your question, one of the patterns that I've seen when I've
Oh,
worked.
and
Mhm,
Brian,
mhm.
one of your um, you and I have been friends since high school.
Yes.
So that's another one of your qualifications is that
There
you
you go.
still have
Yes,
friends forever.
absolutely. Yes.
I just
So
had to
one.
throw it in there because I thought he's not going to mention that he knows me. No,
Yes. Yeah, actually, yeah,
go ahead.
so
I was just being funny.
yeah, no, no worries. Um, so one of the things that I've seen when I've been working with these families whose children are in foster care is that they they don't receive a lot of services. Like they're given certain things.
There's
Like
a
they're given
lot
gas.
more. Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah,
more that they don't tell you that's available
right.
for you
Yeah.
because they don't want you to reunify.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so
but
they're
yeah,
maybe
you don't
given yeah,
know.
they're maybe given, like, a gas card so they can get to drug tests and things like that, but basically what I have seen is that it tends to kind of follow a pattern, is that they've gone through this whole experience, their children have been removed, they now have, a mark on their record, and because this is basically a criminal record, a lot of times employers are, um for various reasons, unwilling or unable to continue to provide employment, and so as a
Well,
result, they wind up losing their jobs.
Well, just like Leah says here, you're seen as a monster. You are
Mhm.
betrayed. People don't want to be associated with you. Even if there's no legal reason to get rid of you,
Right,
they will try to get rid of you because they don't want to be associated with somebody that has, CPS court happening.
right.
And it is so messed up. Even just the allegations
Mhm.
can ruin somebody's life.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and so a lot of times people who work in, say, for example, like law enforcement or
Mhm,
security, or who have certain levels of clearance in certain jobs, they can't keep those jobs because they have a mark on their criminal record, and as a result,
mhm.
they lose their job that way. But even if that doesn't happen, what can often happen is because there's so many court dates that they have to make. There's so many different appointments that they have to
Mhm.
make in terms of, like there's the random drug testing that they have to go to. Um, that's challenging for any job, any person
Right.
who's in any kind of, in any kind of employment. And as a result, a lot of times employers will get to a point where they're just kind of like they can't,
Well,
they're no longer willing to accommodate it. And as a
right.
result, you get let go for that reason.
I was very lucky. I was lucky enough that I was working for Mr. Davis, for Vincent Davis at the time when I had to do
Mhm.
my services. But the way that they had them staggered and at how many I had to do, it was literally a full-time job.
Mhm.
I was doing like 2 classes on Mondays and then 1 class on like a Wednesday at 7 and then I'd have a morning class and then you'd have random drug testing and you'd have to be there within 30 minutes of
Right.
them calling you. So some places are different. Some places you have to call in the morning, and if they say the last letter or the first letter of your last name, then you have to be there at some point today. Some places say you have to be here in 30 minutes, or and depends on, and it also depends on what's written in your paperwork. But so with random drug testing and all the classes that I had to take, it was seriously, it was a full-time job. I wouldn't have been able to, I'm sure I would have gotten fired if I was like, hey, I have to go drug test again, because there
Mhm.
was random drug tests for me where it was like 3 days in a row.
Right.
And
Right.
like I said, luckily enough, I was doing the shows with Mr. Davis at the time. I was working for him at the time. I didn't have to worry about my employer being like, "Oh, I don't know about CPS, so I don't know about you."
Right.
He knew
Yeah.
what was up, and um even though it was just the shows, it was like it was so hard to, you are not meant to complete your services, by the
Mhm.
way. I actually did complete my services, but I wasn't alone. I had help. I had a support system, and
Yeah.
that's really, really important. I couldn't imagine being a parent that loses their child, and they have then all of their family leaves them, and they have no friends.
Right. Yeah.
It was the hardest thing in the whole world, and only reason I was able to complete my services in time was because I had a support system.
Right. And that's a big part of it. Yeah, because what tends to happen a lot of times that I've seen in these, in these cases is that a lot of these individuals had a very rocky support system to begin with,
Right.
and once this starts to happen to them, once they start to go through this process, they're needing to rely on that support system more and more, because they don't have income. They don't, they're constantly having to go to court,
Mhm.
to court to fight for, um, or to basically demonstrate that they are a fit parent.
Mhm.
And a lot of times family members are, start to become frustrated and irritated because they're having to ask for more and more.
Yeah.
And again, because a lot of times what happens is once they lose
Didn't
employment.
you just go to drug testing? Didn't you just go to your
Right.
classes? Like, what? Why
Right.
are you bothering me again? Like, what?
Right.
I have
Right.
to do a minimum of 18 hours per class
Hmm.
in 6 months before, and you think that's a long time to do your services. It isn't, especially when you have multiple services to do, multiple
Right.
classes,
Yeah. Because a lot of
and
times
that
you're having to take anger
mhm,
management classes, parenting classes, co-parenting
dome-
classes,
domestic
um,
violence
yeah, domestic
therapy.
individual therapy.
Hmm.
You may have to be taking classes on addiction recovery, going to
Yeah.
AA meetings or
Hmm.
12-step meetings.
Hmm.
And and all of this has to be done within 6 months. And you usually have like 12 to 14 sessions of individual therapy that you're having to do.
Hmm.
Each one of those classes usually is about 8 to 9 sessions at least.
Oh no,
Um,
18 hours. So that's an hour session. So you have 18 out
mhm,
you have 18 sessions to do.
mhm,
And the way they were set up here in San Bernardino County is when you started, so say these people started at, class 1, I'm coming in 6 weeks later. I have to wait for
mhm,
those classes to come back around
right.
to start. So I
Yeah.
can go in and I can jump in 6, but I can go 6 to 12, and then I have to start over again in the beginning.
Right.
And the parenting classes are set up in modules where there's like newborns to 1-year-olds and
Mhm,
so on. And so I have a 7-year-old or 5 and 6-year-old at the time. Why am I in classes about newborns?
right.
But it doesn't matter. You just have to jump in the hamster wheel,
Mhm,
and if they put you in late or you start late, you might not finish in time to get in
right.
front of the judge with your classes because
Right.
they have this wait, and if you miss a class, God
Mhm,
forbid,
yeah.
then you have to wait for that class to come all the way back around.
Right. Yeah. And so it's very challenging. And like you were saying, like 18 sessions, that's basically right there. That's 4.5 months
Yep.
of
One
sessions.
class.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I gotta plug me. I gotta plug in.
And
But yeah,
so, yeah, so
that's
that's,
one.
that right there. That means that that's 4.5 months if you're doing it like back to back to back to back. And that's assuming that like from day one, like once they say like, you
Mhm.
have 6 months to go, you know, that's 4.5 months. So you have a
Right.
month and a half of play.
No, and they don't even tell you. They don't tell you that you are the one that has to set up your services. You're the one that has to follow through. You think, okay,
Mhm.
the court ordered services. This is why I have a caseworker. You know,
Hmm.
I found out 2 months later that I was supposed to be like signing up for these things. And I said, wait a minute, aren't what is your job then? And they
Yeah.
didn't like that, but because I was
Hmm.
like, "So you're having me I understand that I have to attend these classes,
Hmm.
but so not only do I have to attend them, I have to find them, and then
Hmm.
you have to approve. Why can't you just give me a list of approved therapists?"
Right.
Oh, because 'cause we're assholes. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. And I
But
think I
yeah,
mean, like having worked on kind of both sides of it and worked with both, like parents whose kids are in foster care and the kids who are in foster care, what I've seen is that the social workers are doing a lot of work on the kids side. And so they're working with the foster caregiver, they're setting up appointments for the kids,
they're setting
they're
up the
meeting with.
parents to get them
Yeah.
removed.
Meeting with the child, the child's therapist and so on and so forth. So they're doing a lot of work on that end, on that end of things. But what I've seen on the parent side is that if they kind of get to a point where they just kind of don't think much of you, like you can't get a hold of them. You can't talk
Yeah.
to them.
You can do
You're
the
supposed to
Aaron
be doing like,
Carranza method where you call
yeah,
them every 15 minutes for 3 days until
right,
somebody calls you back.
right,
But a lot of people don't have that kind of time on their hands, especially when
right,
you gotta do all the services.
right. And
Um,
so it makes it very challenging to understand like what's needed and to be
mhm.
able to have a good rapport with the social worker when the social worker really isn't connecting with you.
When they're
um
biased,
yeah.
you're already set up for failure. They already want you to fail. You're designed to fail. But
Hmm.
excuse me, when you get a caseworker or a social worker that doesn't
Hmm.
like you,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a popularity contest,
Yeah.
and you're playing with people's lives, and
Yeah.
because let's face facts. This taking and separating children from their parents,
Hmm.
even when there's some abuse,
Hmm.
it's still it's still better than putting them into foster care.
Hmm.
Let me rephrase the abuse thing. So I guess what I have to look it up. There was a new study that was just done. I thought it was up here, but this is my dependency court paperwork. But so there was a new study that saying even if there was some kind of physical abuse where it borders like corporal punishment, it's punishment, but it could go either way. It is still better to leave them in the home
Yes.
than to put them into foster care because the
Yeah.
detriment of that child is supposed to
Hmm.
be, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. The long term, when you look at like uh the long-term ramifications of being placed in foster care and being left in the parental home, basically they are more likely to be able to graduate from high school, to be able to go on and have a successful career. Kids who've been in foster care are, I think, I want to say it's about, there's a 50% chance, or 50% likelihood that their own kids are going to wind up in foster care.
I
um,
call foster care the pipeline to prison.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
because you can make direct correlations in later
Right.
in their life with kids that have been
Yeah.
in foster care,
Yeah.
specifically because of what they
Yeah.
have to go through. I have a client whose son has been moved all around different states, and the kid sees more drugs in his group home and more
Mhm.
violence and more inappropriate behavior than
Yeah.
he's ever even seen on TV in
Right.
the home.
Right.
When the boy acts up in his group home, they call his parents to take
Mhm.
care of the problem. Well,
Yeah.
if you're having me come correct my child, why can't I just take him the fuck home?
Right.
You're calling me
Right.
for clothes, you're calling me to get this done and get that done, and he's
Right.
acting up. Can you drive up here and calm him down? Well, why do you even have him?
Right.
It's just
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so that's a lot of, and Leah Baker is saying in the comments about brain damage when they've been taken away from their parents. One of the things that I would say is that like um, the attachment disruption is very hard on the kids. Like even if it is in an abusive situation where there really is physical and emotional abuse in the home,
Mhm.
even in those situations, it is better to leave them in the home, like long term, for their development than it is to
Mhm.
place them in foster care. That attachment disruption causes so many problems for them over the course of their lives. And
Mhm.
in fact, there's even diagnoses within the DSM-5 that essentially we kind of created because of the foster care system.
Right.
There
I think
where
we
they
touched a little bit
Yeah,
on that and when we did
yeah,
the moral history of foster care, but
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
we can go a little
Basically,
bit
yeah.
more
It's
into that.
there's it the two that are primary is reactive attachment disorder, which is basically that the child doesn't feel like they're able to connect with anyone, um,
Mhm.
and as a result, they kind of fend for themselves. The other is disinhibited social engagement disorder. That's a mouthful.
Ooh, say
Um,
that 5 times fast.
yeah, sorry. Where basically what happens is the child will basically attach to anyone,
Mhm.
and so that can be very dangerous when they're getting around strangers and things like that, because they can just walk off with somebody and not have any compulsion or
Right. That's
yeah
when they get, like, super,
compunction about
like,
that.
inappropriately close, like, they will, like,
Right.
climb up in
Hmm.
a stranger's lap and,
Hmm.
"I love you," and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right, exactly. And so yeah, boundaries are are really challenging, but those being able to have like a loving and supportive attachment figure is so important, because as we get into adulthood, then we can develop things like borderline personality disorder, where they can
Mhm.
have this sort of um, where their relationships are highly unstable because they've just never had that love and care and support modeled for them. And I like and I bring it up a lot, which is that if you ever really want to see what it looks like to see like an attachment disruption where somebody has done absolutely nothing wrong, and yet they've been separated from the child for a long period of time. There's the ACLU released a video of a family where the parents and the children had been separated at the border, because they were undocumented, and then several months later they were reunited, and the mom tries to go and hug her son, and her son basically squirms away from her and crawls underneath his dad's feet and kind of runs away from her, and she's crying and she's saying, my
Mhm.
son has they've traumatized my son, and she's right.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
it was, yeah, and I mean, it wasn't because she was a bad parent. It wasn't because she did anything, to the child other than try to bring them here to escape a very difficult situation. And she was cleared of any wrongdoing, and
Mhm.
so
I mean, even if she just brought them here to have a better life, whether she was escaping violence or whatever,
Mhm,
the fact that that child who's now forever for the rest of his life
yeah,
traumatized, and that
yeah,
mother is traumatized, and I
mm,
am sure that she was talked bad about,
right,
you know,
yeah,
instead of judging your family member that has this, how about you ask them what's going on?
right,
Maybe look at their paperwork,
right,
be involved, or just give them a hug.
yeah,
It is the most painful thing
yeah,
to lose your baby.
yeah. And I think another thing to kind of keep in mind too is that, like, again, as we were talking about, like, after you've lost your job, right, and you are,
Mhm,
now your um your housing is threatened,
mhm.
your ability to, like, and so a lot of a lot of individuals who are dealing with CPS are struggling with housing issues because now they
Oh,
don't have any income.
let's
Yeah,
face it, they go after the low income people,
right,
and by the way, being homeless is not a reason to have your children removed.
sure,
That's
yeah,
unconstitutional. They cannot
yeah,
remove your child because you are homeless. There
hmm,
has to be a clear and articulable threat of
hmm,
immediate harm or death to the child, not because you're
right,
homeless
right,
or not because I heard that next week daddy's going to come home and beat up this kid.
right,
Not, that's not
right,
it. But since they're
yeah,
low income, they get preyed upon. And then, like you said, they already have, they already
yeah,
have housing problems.
right,
But DCFS doesn't tell you that they can help you get into housing. That's
mm,
in their power. That's in their ability. That's in your services.
hmm.
But they don't
Yeah,
give
because
that up.
I've had so many clients where we've even reached out to their social worker and specifically asked about that and said, you know, client is struggling with housing, what services are available, and they're like,
Mhm.
well, there just really isn't anything available.
Right, not
And they've
true.
literally said that to,
No, no, I know. They've said it to a client. I'm like, you were lying. You know that's a damn lie. And then
Right,
all of a sudden they found something, But
right,
they're supposed to help you mental health care, with child care. There's housing
right.
stuff. Even if they can't put you into housing, they can get you connected with the correct people.
Okay.
So let's
Yeah.
not pretend that there's nothing that they can do, because
Mhm.
there's plenty they can do to help
Mhm.
you. But the thing is, they
Yeah.
don't want to help you because that comes
Right.
out of their budget. That
Right.
comes out of the money that they get to bonus off of. So they have to take another kid and then another kid and then another kid.
Right. And
Now, I
so,
go
yeah.
ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so but that's what happens, and so now you have clients who are struggling with homelessness,
Mhm.
and they're trying to find a place to sleep. They're trying to find a place to they're just trying to find their next meal. And when
Mhm.
when we're at that level, that's basically the base of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Is like food, shelter, housing, all of that kind of, shelter and housing. That's two words that mean the same thing. Sorry, but yeah,
But
those
it's
are the
not the same thing. It's
yeah,
not the same thing. Shelter and housing are two different things, but they
yeah,
do have a roof over your head.
yeah,
That's not the same thing. But so
right,
you were correct. But
yeah, but
so
yeah, but anyway,
if you
but what
would have just
happens?
kept going, I wouldn't
Yeah.
have.
But what happened was that what happens then is that now they're struggling with that,
Mhm.
and they're still expected to complete like
Mm.
their family therapy, their individual therapy, their addiction recovery, all their co-parenting classes, parenting classes, and so on and so forth. When you are at that level where you are basically just fighting for survival, it is that what we're talking about there is like self-actualization, which is like the pinnacle of the which is the peak of the pyramid.
Um,
And
I wanted
yeah.
to just there's a comment that says, "And it didn't help." No,
Mm,
services, what I've noticed is that they don't help. They actually they hinder you more. They cause, like we're talking about right now, you lose your job because you have to do all these services. People look at you different, like, why are you going to this class again? You crazy? Yeah,
mhm.
no, it's
Yeah,
not always, but most of the time it's a waste of
mm,
parents' time, and it's a way
yeah,
just to wear you down.
right. And I
And
think that,
California is one of the worst states.
yeah. And if you are
So
struggling with something like addiction and you are at that level, guess what's going to happen? You know, because it's a coping
I think they
mechanism.
count on it. I think they
Yeah.
count on you self-medicating.
Mm,
So they put all of this stress, and they're like, "Oh, so she likes to have a drink once in a while, or this parent smokes pot, or whatever." I'm sorry, but I
mhm.
don't think drugs are a reason to remove someone's children. I
Yeah.
always think there's always extreme reasons
Yeah.
in situations, but I'm sorry. I think if you have an issue with a substance, you want to get clean and go to rehab, you should be able to take your children.
Yeah.
I don't
And
think
I
you
think,
should
yeah, I
be
mean, kind of along those,
given.
yeah, I mean, along those lines, I mean, if obviously there are situations where it could be dangerous, where like if,
Right,
for example, they're leaving drug paraphernalia around the house for the children to
right.
get
The
at them,
kids running around with
absolutely
a
that is a,
needle or whatever. I
yeah.
mean, there's
But
obviously
but
those seem
general, but
reasonable.
like if they take a drug test and fail the drug test, there is nothing to suggest that drug use in itself is a detriment to children.
Mhm.
And so that is, so it's, but that is one of the ways that they are able to remove children and have some evidence, to support that.
Well,
But
actually, technically,
mhm.
they can't remove on suspicion of drugs. They do it all the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say they do it all
They
the
do it
time.
all the time, but
It's
it's
not that they
not an
can't, it's
actual.
that they
No, no, no.
shouldn't be able to. It's not.
No, they can't. They
Yeah.
are not allowed. So there's only the very limited scope, clear
Mhm.
and articulable danger to the child.
Right.
So the time it takes to get a warrant is
Mhm.
1 to 2 hours. If
Mhm.
irreparable the harm is, I can't talk tonight.
Yeah.
If they're gonna basically be beaten almost to death or to death
Mhm.
or die in that hour or 2 hours, there
Mhm.
is no other reason to remove a child without a warrant.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
when you get into suspicion,
Mhm.
even then, when they have to do an investigation,
Mhm.
which they never do,
Mhm.
um, suspicion of drug use or a fear of future offending, are
Mhm.
not reasons to remove legal reasons to remove a child. They do it all the time.
I was gonna say, yeah, yeah.
So, just because I
The
think
law and what happens are two different things.
the law exactly yes. What was it? The law and reason?
Mhm.
They're two different things.
Yeah,
Yeah, so when you go to court, throw out all reason and all of, you think
yeah,
that or accountability, because that don't matter.
yeah.
The law is completely different
Right,
than what you think. Oh, well,
yeah,
wouldn't it be better if, yes, it would be, but this is court and we don't think like that.
right. And so, yeah, so that's what I have seen happens to families. And at that point, once they're at that level, like so many of them just break under the weight and pressure of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I've had clients who just basically, they're like, I love my kids. I want my kids back,
Mm-hmm.
but I've reached my limit. Like I can't keep going like
Yeah, that's
this.
what they want from you.
Yeah, because basically what happens is they just get to a point where they are so depressed
Mm-hmm.
and in despair, they can't get out of bed. They can't do anything. And so they start to kind of try and develop and, like put their lives back together to some degree. And then they're contacted by CPS again. Like, why haven't you done your drug test? Why haven't you done this? What's going on here? And they just get to a point they're just like, I can't win and I need to survive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, and so
Oh
they
yeah.
have to walk away, you
No,
know.
like I said,
Yeah.
every time, I know 100 more times, you are set up to fail. This is not designed to help you. It's
Mhm.
not designed to reunify. And anyone that says otherwise has not been in this position,
Yeah.
because it is insane the things that they want from you.
Right.
But the problem is they don't support. You don't get the support because CPS has
Right.
this angel complex, right?
Right.
Everyone thinks they're great. What did you tell me the other day about when at work that people were when you first started
Oh,
doing these cases with
yeah,
me?
because I've had, I mean, I have other I work with other therapists and we do supervision once a week, and they'll bring up cases that have to that are dealing with issues related to the foster care system, and and they're just initially they kind of looked at me like I was just sort of like wacky tinfoil hat, like conspiracy theorist. And I
Yeah,
understand why, because
yeah,
unless you've seen it firsthand, it sounds insane. But
yeah.
now that
No,
once they start to get these clients and they're like, I don't know what's going on. Like they've done their case plan. Like they're cooperating with the, with the CPS, caseworker. I've written letters on their behalf saying that that they're good, that they're, a good caregiver, and yet they are in danger of losing their children.
hmm
And, or they, or they're just kind of getting started out in the whole situation, with like domestic violence or stuff like that. And, and we're trying really hard to make sure that they're covering themselves legally, by making those reports, getting the restraining order, moving out of the house. And yet there are still situations where some of some of their clients are now having the caseworker coming back and saying, well, it took you 2 years, and so maybe you are a danger to your children, and you're just like, are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me right now? Like, they got out of the situation. And it's still not enough.
No, it's not enough, and you have to go above and beyond and do more than you're supposed to. I don't know how you're supposed to do more than that.
Mhm.
It's insane.
Yeah. But there's
I
yeah, but
Go
they're
ahead.
now starting to see like exactly what I've been seeing, and so now we're starting to bring in like, um, legal experts to do, to talk about some of the things that our clients need to be aware of legally when they are engaged in this sort of thing, so that they don't wind up in the situation that a lot of the people who are in our audience right now are struggling in.
Mhm. I haven't talked about much, but I say be very wary of the safety plan,
Mm,
because that is like the gateway to hell.
Hmm.
because that is opening yourself up to a lot more of interference by them. And
Hmm.
when we had our safety plan meeting, I had no idea what was happening.
Hmm.
The caseworker, the investigator, literally just told me that there's no safety concerns leaving my daughter in my home. I have it
Hmm.
recorded. I'll play it
Yeah.
in a second.
Sure.
So I'll go to a safety meeting. Fine. I go to the
Mhm.
safety meeting. My family members are there. They're my support system. And they are so confused by what's going on
Hmm.
that they're like, whoa, I don't understand this. So even when you take them to your safety meeting or create your safety plan, it
Mhm.
is designed to make you look bad.
Hmm.
It's not designed to prop you up and help you get through this. They don't want you to get through this.
Mhm.
But even with my mom and my sister and my dad at my safety plan, my mom and my sister were like, "Huh? Well, you had to have done something wrong."
Right.
No. Well,
Yeah.
look, I've taken responsibility for why I lost my daughter a few years ago. I tried to
Mhm.
take my own life.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
So if I didn't try to take my own life, Mario wouldn't have had the opportunity to use that against me,
Mhm.
and A, B, C, D wouldn't have happened, but it did.
Right.
So,
Mhm.
you know, um, and they were like, "Oh, she can't get over this, and she's minimized." No, I'm just healed and moved forward.
Yeah.
But when there's an accusation, my family in the beginning were like, "Okay, we don't want anything," and I'm like, "Are you serious? Like, you
Mhm.
see me and my child every day. Do you really think that I would physically abuse my daughter or
Mhm.
emotion?" They're like, "Well," and I'm like, "Think about it. Just think about." But that's how big their reputation is for being the guardians of children and the protectors of children, is that people that good and goddamn well, that would
Mhm.
never abuse anybody or hurt their child. It
Mhm.
makes you second guess them. And that is the most hurtful, heartbreaking feeling when your family's like, "Oh, maybe she did do it."
Right. And that's again kind of what starts to happen is that
Mhm.
like even with people who even with parents who've been the victims of domestic violence who did nothing wrong themselves, their families start to blame them, like, why didn't you leave sooner? You should have known that this was coming. You should have you could have done X, Y, and Z, and you're not handling your own case very well. And that's what, and if you were handling it better, maybe they give you your kids back, and they
Yeah.
just don't
Exactly. That right
understand.
there.
Yes.
That part right there
Yes.
is the second
Yeah.
one thing I wanted to address was, well, maybe if you were doing a better job, you would have your kids back. What
Right.
the
Yeah.
why would you ever say that to anybody?
Right.
Like, it's so
Yeah.
judgmental, and
Yeah.
parents that are going through this, it's hard enough. But
Yeah.
then to have your family like, "Oh, well, obviously you're a bad parent. You would have had your kid back by now."
Mhm.
Let's get this bullshit out of the way.
Yeah.
They'll tell you 6 months.
Mhm.
It is not 6 months. There's a possibility you could get
Yeah,
your
I was
kid
gonna
back
say,
in
like,
6
yeah,
months.
on a dream and a prayer.
No, it's not
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
They're gonna drag this out,
Mhm.
and I think it was 10 months for me, and that was me full time,
Mhm.
full time fighting them, doing my
Right.
classes, this, that, and the other,
Yeah.
and not having other children to deal with. Because what's weird is sometimes they'll take one and not the other,
Mhm.
which is weird.
Yeah.
Jobs, and like I said, I was lucky enough to work for Mr. Davis, so I was working in the field already.
Mhm.
So, but and I didn't have an addiction problem. And I don't know how many times I thought to myself, "Oh my, I'm not a drinker. I haven't had anything to drink in probably 10 years, just because I
Mhm.
don't like it." I don't
Yeah.
know how many times I thought to myself, "Man, what a horrible day at the office, at the CPS office. I need a drink. I'm gonna start drinking."
Mhm.
Now, I don't have a drinking problem. I don't even drink. But for it to push me to that point where
Mhm.
I want to drink or let me freaking take something to knock me out, I couldn't imagine being a parent that's actually struggling with addiction.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
that's the go-to is the self-medicating,
Right.
um, and the easiest way to numb that pain.
Right. And it can even be something as simple as too, because like when you're sleeping in your car, it is not comfortable. Like I'm sure people like, I'm sure, you've gone on camping trips or something like that
Yeah.
where like you're sleeping in your car and you wake up the next morning and everything hurts.
Mhm.
And when you're doing that daily, it can be a challenge to just be able to get to sleep at night. And sometimes one of the ways that people can, try to ameliorate that is just to start drinking alcohol, because it does kind of numb you out. It does kind of make you sleepy. It does make it easier to fall asleep. There's a reason why there's so much of it in NyQuil.
Mhm. Makes you warmer. You feel warmer.
Yeah. And so, yeah. So when you're feeling, when you're like, you, it makes you feel warmer. It doesn't actually make you warmer. It actually
No, it
can,
makes you feel warmer, so you
yeah,
think, "Okay, I'm
yeah,
not freezing so much.
yeah,
I'm gonna go, I can fall asleep
right.
now."
Because it's numbing out your body. Right. Yeah.
Right.
And so that's one of the ways that people use to cope in a situation that is as bad as that. But the other thing that happens is that like the family, when they do place them with family members, they start to feel the burden because the kids are now going through attachment disruption.
Mhm.
And so their behaviors become very dysregulated. They are often angry at their parents. They're often violent when the parents leave.
Mhm.
They often start turning on one another.
And then
And
they blame the parent, and I'm like, Wait a
right.
minute.
Yeah.
I'm
And so
not
now
even there."
so now the family is starting to blame the parent for like, what did you do to your kids that they're like this? And then they didn't
Or
do anything. It was that
right.
they got placed in foster care.
Or they will cut visits because the child reacts and acts
Reacts.
badly.
Yeah.
What
And it's
Well, of course they're
sad.
gonna act badly when their mama leaves or their daddy leaves.
Yeah, because they're
What do you
sad to see them
expect?
leave. Yeah, they're
You
sad to
know?
see them leave.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, so that often then kind of like, disrupts the extended family. And as a result, they're losing more and more support even from them, because they're seeing what's happening with the kids and they're blaming the parent, even though the parent isn't there to be able to do anything about it. And they're coming in and trying to show that love and care and support that they know that their kids need. And because they are only getting maybe once a week for an hour or two, um, that's not enough to maintain a healthy relationship with your kids. And as a
No.
result, the kids start to get angry, and they also start to resent the parents for, why
Mhm.
haven't you gotten me out yet? I
Right, and
thought it
that's
was only
another
supposed
thing.
yeah, I
If
thought it
your
was only
parent
supposed to be 6 months. And so now they're
and I thought your
angry and
parent, if you
yeah.
you know, if you should have got me, you don't love me, you didn't fight
Mhm.
hard enough to get me out.
Yeah.
Um, Imagine that all on you trying to get your kid, and then your kid say like,
Yeah.
"This is the worst thing ever."
Yeah.
It is
And
seriously, it is the worst thing ever, and
yeah.
everyone just treats you
Yeah.
like you are a piece of shit,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's insane. I don't I have to I found I took a new client on today, and, I need to tell you part of her story. She's gonna come on my show, but the craziest thing is her children were removed and placed with
Mm.
her ex, not a bio parent at all.
Mm.
And the bio parents are like, "No, no, 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 no. Why are she's not even related to these
Mhm.
children." Yes.
Hmm.
So this person's ex said A, B, and C, right? And
Mhm.
then got her children, and the bio parents are like, "Hello, we have family, could have placed here, you could have placed there." Th- No,
Yeah.
she's not even blood related.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
insane to me. Like,
Yeah.
how is this happening? It's because the social worker
Right.
has an affection for this other person, and like
Mhm.
I said, it's a popularity
Yeah.
contest. But
Yeah, I've
I
seen
couldn't believe it.
situations where the kids were taken away from the person who was being abused and placed with the abuser.
Right.
And a lot of times it's because the abuser walks away with the money,
Mm,
and so they're able to they're able to mount a better like
defense,
case in in the court
better strategy.
system.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Um, yeah.
I've noticed that abusers most of the time
Mhm.
walk away with more custody,
Yeah.
walk away looking better in dependency court. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you why. I figured it out. So we're parents like, okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I see my daughter being hurt over at the other parent's house, right?
Hmm.
So I say something. They don't do
Hmm.
anything. So I say something again. They're going to
Yeah.
start to label you as obsessed. You are
Right.
obsessed with the other parent.
Right.
So what the narcissist does, or they just zoom in and hyper focus on themselves
Hmm.
to make themselves look like the better parent. And then you're over
Right.
here saying, look, hey, blah, blah, blah. Oh, here she comes again. Oh,
Right.
now she's claimed the kid's being driven around while the babysitter smokes pot.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to complain about that.
Yeah.
You are driving intoxicated with my child. But they did, you know,
Right.
they don't, once they've made up their mind about you.
Yeah. There's very little you can do. Yeah.
I mean, you have to make sure that your attorney gets your proof
Yeah.
and your certificates in front of your judge. Because
Right.
at the end of the day, that's who makes the orders.
Right.
So make sure your attorneys get
Mhm.
all of your certificates, all of the extra classes you've done, webinars that you've done, everything in front of your judge. The judge
Mhm.
could only rule on what's in front of him.
Mhm.
And you know that CPS is not going to put anything positive about you
Mhm.
into your report.
Right. Yeah.
God, my camera's so
And I
bouncy.
think, and I think it's important to note too, that because like there have been some limited studies, there haven't been very many of them because it's kind of this is kind of one of those third rails that nobody wants to touch.
Mhm.
But there have been some studies that have basically taken families, kind of who go through the normal process when it comes to, dependency court, and their kids
Mhm.
are placed in foster care, and then they created like a study group essentially where they basically provided the family the services. So they were providing them things like medical care, mental health care.
Mhm.
They were able to provide them with financial support when they needed it.
Okay.
They were able to provide things like food for the family, so on and so forth. When they were able to do that, what they found was not only was it better for the kids because the kids were able to stay with their parents, the parents were much more likely to complete their case plans.
Mhm.
And so it actually, like in every, and on top of everything, it was cheaper than
That's
placing
another
them in the
thing.
foster care system.
Mhm. That's
And
another
so,
thing, is
yeah.
if you have a savvy attorney, they can
Mhm.
argue the point that putting this child into care is gonna cost more, it's gonna cost the county more. They'll give you your damn kickback.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
like, don't take the kid in the first place, and we wouldn't have to
right,
traumatize them. But
right.
it's
Yeah,
like you said, it is evident when people have
right,
support and have a support system,
right.
they get better. And I
Yeah.
don't talk to me about this rock bottom bullshit. I can't.
Yes, we were just talking about that too.
No, 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 no.
Yeah,
Well, people have to hit their no, they don't.
yeah,
Why? You see someone drowning, are you gonna
yeah,
scold them and then
yeah,
give them a life raft? No.
yeah,
Give them a life raft, bring them up on the let them
yeah,
take a breather, and then you scold them if you must. But
yeah,
you don't yell at a
yeah.
drowning person. Why do you
Right.
have to wait till they lose everything so it's
Right,
harder for them to come
right.
up from it?
And I mean, you really think about it. I mean, logically, when we're talking about, like this is true for the rock bottom thing tends to come up with an addiction recovery, but it's applicable here as well because a lot of times
They
parents
take
hit
your kids
rock.
because of drugs.
Yeah. But you think about it. Who do you think is more likely to recover? Somebody whose wife is supportive, family is supportive, is trying to help them, get the mental health care that they need in order to overcome their addiction, have friends and
Mhm.
family members who are there to basically say like, look, hey, we're going to stick by you as we go through this. Or somebody who has completely lost their job, alienated their family, divorced their wife, lost all their friends.
Mhm.
Who's the one that's most likely to recover there?
What do you mean? You mean the person that's lost everything and living on the street is gonna wanna
Yeah,
get up and
yeah,
check no, I'm
right.
sorry.
And so, and actually, when we have looked at that in research, in psychological research, pretty much what is like kind of the no-brainer there is, yeah, the people who have a support network and are able to get um, care are better, do better. And we even
Mhm.
see it in other countries. I'm trying to remember, I think is it Portugal, who basically decriminalized addiction,
Mm.
and basically focused more on rehabilitation. Um,
No, yeah, you're right. You're
yeah,
right.
what they have found though is in countries where they have decriminalized addiction and instead focused on like rehabilitation and addiction recovery, have found that one, the recidivism rate goes way down, and two, the people who go through that actually have better long-term um, uh, success just in general in their lives. And so it's kind of like it's kind of a no-brainer. Like that's what we should be doing. We shouldn't be criminalizing addiction, and
Mhm.
we shouldn't. And even in a situation with kids, kind of, which I think is again cross applicable, we shouldn't be criminalizing the fact that parents are struggling with addiction by taking their kids away.
Mhm.
We should be trying to make sure that we can get them help. And even with parents who are maybe, and like, it's not something that's appropriate, but like if they are emotionally abusive, if they are physically abusive, they need help to be able to understand what it's like, how to be a better parent.
Right.
And really it should be in, kind of like, this is Brian's opinion, but we should
I
be
like
really
Brian's opinion.
yes. We should be really focusing on kids who are in like imminent danger, who have sustained potentially life-threatening, injuries, and who are in dangerous environments where there are access to things like, drug needles and,
Weapons.
or where there's actual neglect. And there are situations where this does happen, where kids have been left in their cribs,
Let's
to,
not get it twisted.
yeah,
There are
yeah,
children that do need to be removed
yeah,
from real abusive situations.
right,
I'm not saying that there
yeah,
isn't and that we
yeah,
need to completely get rid of CPS. I'm saying we need to
right,
dismantle it
yeah,
and retrain and all
yeah,
that other stuff. But there are situations where children do need to be rescued.
right,
But in my opinion and in my lifespan in this arena,
mhm, yeah,
most of the parents that I come across do not deserve to go through what they've gone through.
right, yeah. And what I've
A
seen
neighbor
is,
calls
yeah,
on you
yeah,
and you get a failure to protect because a neighbor don't like you.
right, yeah,
Then you this will literally drive parents insane to be
yeah,
in separation.
right.
Woo!
And yeah, or an anonymous call to
Mhm.
CPS from your abuser.
Yeah,
That happens pretty frequently.
all
Um,
the time.
yeah, and what I have seen in my in the work that I've done, and it's just mind blowing
Mm.
to me, is that the kids who are really in a situation where they want to get out, like they literally would tell like will
Yeah.
literally tell you like, I need to get out of here. I hate being here.
Mhm.
um, because of X, Y, and Z. Like these are the things that my parents are doing that are physically and emotionally abusive, and I'm feeling suicidal because of it. They
Mhm.
don't get anything. Whereas, like,
They
yeah,
yeah. They get,
um,
"Oh, that kid's just being a kid."
yeah, or again, kind of,
Overreacting or super
yeah,
sensitive.
yeah, or as you pointed out, like the parent who's basically saying like, look, this is the things that are happening to my kids over there,
Mhm.
and like you know, they're coming to me and saying, get me out of this situation, right?
Right.
Nothing is being done in those situations. And in
I mean,
fact,
you look at
usually it's the
the
person, yeah, usually it's the fam, it's like you were pointing out, the parent who's saying these things is starting to be labeled the problem, as
right.
opposed to the parent who is the one that is engaging in the behaviors.
Well, look at that little poor little boy. Was it Gabriel Fernandez? Look how much CPS was involved and
Mhm,
looks the other way.
mhm.
And that little boy died from abuse from his parents.
Yeah, yeah,
Everybody knew and nobody did
mhm,
anything because it was easier
right,
not to. It was they go for the
yeah,
low hanging fruit.
right,
And it's sad
yeah,
because there are children that need intervention. I even told
yeah,
my caseworker, I said, "You are wasting resources on me.
mhm,
There are children that really do need intervention and it's not me.
Right.
And they didn't want to,
Mm.
they are having none of that. They didn't like to be told what was what.
Yeah.
Um, I now go back to the DCFS office with clients sometimes, and
Mhm.
I've been back to the office that I've been at, and they wouldn't let me in.
Uh-huh.
I'm suing the county,
Yeah.
and I'm teaching other parents how to overcome these obstacles. So
Yeah.
sometimes I will work with parents, and I'm like, don't say anything about me until
Yeah.
we submit my letter to your attorney, who will submit it to the
Mhm.
court,
Yeah.
because sometimes they'll be like, oh, that's
Yeah.
and they'll mess with the parent.
Right.
So I'm like, now if you want them, you want them, sometimes you need them to know that you're working outside of their bubble
Mhm.
and that you're going above and beyond. That's really great. And then other
Mm.
times people are like, I let's keep it between us until court because I'm
Right.
afraid of
Right.
um my
Yeah.
caseworker.
And so, yeah, I mean, like ever since I've started working with clients, based on kind of some of the things that you've gone through,
Hmm.
um, one of the, I kind of like what you've been saying is you can't show emotion. And so
Nope.
I'm kind of, this is kind of for any therapist who might be in the audience, which is that like, you want to work with your clients on being able to manage their emotions under stressful situations. And so that can be things like mindful breathing, that
Hmm.
can be doing things like EMDR, or
I
the,
love EMDR. I
yes.
swear by it saved my life, EMDR.
Yeah, to be able to help them get through those traumatic, those those memories of trauma that are triggering them when they get into those situations so that they can manage it better, and being able to help them, know what to say to,
Or what not
their,
to say.
yeah, or to their court appointed therapists, or what to look for,
Or
because
what,
they're,
don't wear prison orange, jumpsuit orange to court. Don't wear
yeah,
black and white stripes. Please
yeah,
don't do it. Wear
yeah,
blue, gray, brown. I
yeah,
had a client really literally wore bright orange, and I'm like,
yeah,
oh, we don't want you
yeah,
to look like
right,
a convict already,
right.
or guilty already.
Yeah,
So
but promoting, yeah, like I often tell my clients, like when you go in for your when you go in for your visitations with your kids, you should dress like you're going to church. Um, because that makes it look like, like you're a
they
fine
write
upstanding
right,
citizen, and it
right,
and it
and
plays into those
they
stereotypes
right.
as horrible as they are.
And they write everything down in your log. So when I was in dependency court, we subpoenaed the delivered service logs. Everybody get your delivered service logs.
Hmm.
Mine
Yeah.
detailed to, I mean, down to the teeniest detail, what shoes
Hmm.
I was wearing, what purse I was wearing, what I
Yeah.
smelled like, what my makeup was like that day. Like they
Hmm.
literally write down you think that they're on their phone not paying attention? No, they are documenting every single detail. So
Yeah.
don't give them anything to work with. Don't come
Right.
in there in some booty shorts, and come in there respectful, like Brian said, like you're going to church, or you're going to um court,
Mhm.
but they will say that you look a mess, or that you look like you're on drugs, or they'll assume you're on drugs, or they'll assume that you're
Mhm.
whatever, a prostitute. Or by the way, they can't take away your kids for that. But
Mhm.
you get looked down on. And so I'm always like, go in jeans and a
Yeah.
clean t-shirt. Don't go in with any drug paraphernalia on your, because
Yeah.
it's written down,
Right.
all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's you wouldn't things like that. That's what I help with, is because people don't think about it.
Right.
They don't think.
Yeah.
And I've also sat down with parents. I've sat down with their family members to explain what it's like to go through this, because
Yeah.
you really do need support.
Right.
And I just want to say to anybody out there who feels like they're alone, you're not. You can call me.
Right.
You can email me, and
Mhm.
I will get to you. You're not alone.
Right.
You're not alone. And
Right.
don't give up, because they want you to. That's why they do it, and that's why it's set up the way it
Right.
is.
Right. Yeah. And I would say too, like if you are in the beginnings of this and you do not have a lawyer yet, this is the period where you need it. This is the period where you need it the most. Because if you can get somebody in at the beginning who can
Mhm.
really advocate for you and fight for you, and knows what they're doing, they can really help you out.
You're
So,
absolutely correct. The sooner you start to put in deposits into your CPS account, is what I call it. Doing your do your services, please. Do your
mhm,
drug testing, please.
yeah,
If you're not on drugs, there should not be a problem. And I've been running
mhm,
into this lately. Well, I shouldn't have to do it. Well, then you don't want your child.
mhm.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry, there's nothing that I wouldn't do.
yeah,
And there's something I didn't
yeah,
do. I jumped through all their hoops.
mhm,
But if you are not doing your services, I can't help you. Brian can't help you.
yeah, yeah. And Leah
Um,
says if you have money to do it, and I think, and
no,
absolutely,
no,
I
no, no.
agree that's a
But
problem.
the court has to pay for it if it's court ordered.
Mm, yeah,
So if it's court ordered, they must pay for it. So
mhm,
do them.
yeah,
They cannot require you to do stuff if the court is not paying for it.
right,
It's
yeah,
unreasonable to believe
yeah.
that anyone
Yeah, I
would
think
be
I
able
think what
to
she meant
afford
was
it.
like the attorney, and I think that's absolutely a valid point. And I would say though that make sure,
Yes.
like, if you have been somebody, if you have been the person who was, who was the, like a victim
Mhm,
of domestic violence, and your kids have
mhm,
been taken away, contact victims of crime
mhm.
because they can help with a lot of those kinds of things. Contact your victim advocates in your county
Right. They
because they
can
can
really
help
connect
provide you
you.
with because when you get to that point, when you're just like absolutely destitute because of the fact that you've left an abusive situation and now
Mhm.
your kids have been taken away on top of everything, you do not have the money to be able to afford that, but you can potentially get connected with those resources if you
Mhm.
if you have struggled with those issues. So
And if you get a lawyer, you get the right lawyer in time, you can get your kids back at your dispositional hearing or the first
mhm,
hearing.
yeah,
But also, some of the best attorneys I have ever met and dealt with were public defenders. They
mm,
just needed to be refocused
mm,
because they don't go into this thinking, "Oh, I'm just gonna,
yeah,
I'm just gonna let people lose their kids." No, they don't. They don't. They just get stuck in the hamster wheel. They get so many cases every single day. There's like upwards of 30 cases a day, 5 days a week. So remember, you can always redirect your court appointed
mhm,
attorney. And my suggestion, just really quick before we go, is write an email to your attorney.
mhm,
I want you to put the most egregious things that have been happening in your case.
mhm,
Bullet points, no more than 2 sentences, make it as short as you can. Leave
mm,
out the emotional stuff. You
mhm,
can call me and talk to me about it, or you can email me about the emotional
yeah,
pain that you're going through because I understand that. But they
mm,
don't. They're not looking for that. They want the
right,
most egregious things that are happening to you and your children right now quickly because a judge needs to read quickly, they need to read quickly. So
yeah,
leave the emotion out, leave your
yeah,
opinion out, leaving hopes and wants, leave it out. Just
mhm,
say this, I went to the CPS office, there was no chairs, they treated me like crap, you know,
yeah,
that's what you need to do is get the most egregious things in front of them
mhm,
so they can help you.
yeah,
And a lot of times you just got to refocus
mhm,
them. And if you don't have the money to get a private attorney, work
yeah,
with your public defender. If you need help
mhm,
doing that, I can help you. You
mhm,
can also go to the local bar website, the Bar Association website.
mhm,
Can't
yeah,
talk. And they
yeah,
have a list of pro bono and low cost attorneys.
oh, good,
So lawyer up. And
mhm,
if you have a public defender, you got to
yeah,
redirect them. There's a couple of things you
yeah,
can do. And then if you guys feel um, like you still need to do more, you can come and do lesson or sessions with me. And for reunification, they just love me. But the courts do, the judges
mhm,
do, but the
yeah,
the caseworkers do not
yeah,
like me at all. But I don't care. That means I'm doing my job.
yeah,
So
yeah,
Um, but if
and
you are feeling alone, you're not alone. You can
yeah,
contact me.
yeah.
You're not
And feel
alone.
free to also to reach out to me, like, if you're
I
struggling and
didn't
you
want to throw you
yeah,
under there.
yeah,
I
if
didn't
you're
want Tracy to
struggling
get mad at me.
and you're looking for a therapist, please feel free to reach out. If I'm not available, I can always, refer you to somebody else at LifeSource. It is called LifeSource Affordable Counseling for a reason. It's, $60 for an associate or $30 for trainees. Trainees, you usually can't get, for, like court stuff, but it can be helpful to just be able to talk to somebody about some of the issues that you're struggling
And
with.
it adds. Oh,
Yep.
now an hour later.
So
This is my DCFS interview when they came to.
yes, yeah, I
Listen.
know. I've seen it a few times. Yeah, but
I love the part where she's like, "There's no safety concerns. I don't know how to stop it."
yeah.
Oh.
Uh-oh. Yes.
Okay.
So,
Remove.
yeah, there we go. So
Whoa, that was weird.
yes. So
I was trying to put that on like an hour ago, and then anyway, I don't know what.
and then all of a sudden it decided to pop up. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you
well,
guys,
thank
you
you.
guys are not alone. You can
Yeah.
reach out to me, Aaron Carranza 247 at Gmail, or here on Facebook. And Brian already gave you his information before my video rudely interrupted him.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can find me on Psychology Today or Good Therapy. So yeah.
Thank you for joining us, and Miss
Yeah,
Baker,
thank you for
I'll see
having
you
me tonight.
tomorrow.
Yeah. All right. You take care.
Bye.
Bye.